Good morning, everybody. Yes, all right, things are happening. Let's get cracking on this Friday morning. People to see, places to go, stuff to talk about, and we have a busy show planned for you today. Of course, a little bit later on, we will get to Ben Karpinsky, who joins us. He's got lots of things to get off his chest today. We've also got a very special part of the show later on where we'll be talking about the Qatar World Cup, because I just suddenly realized last night, well, yesterday morning, that the World Cup is happening this month, the 20th of December. So, I mean, November, somewhere around like the 20th, somewhere a couple of days away, like 2 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks. And I'm like, shit, this is something I look forward to every year. This is, I have books on my shelf about like previous World Cups. I have memorabilia from previous World Cups. When it was here in South Africa, I went to like 9 games. For my sins, I'm an Argentina supporter and have been with my brother since we were like, I don't know, 12 and 9. So I love the World Cup, but I didn't even realize it was so soon. And I must be honest with you, I'm struggling to get excited. No, it could have something to do with the fact that it's in Qatar and it's only happening in November instead of the usual time of the year, the European summer in July, because that's when we had it, even though we're in the Southern Hemisphere. And it was bloody cold, if you remember that properly. But we'll be talking to Stefano Vigoriti, who's done, he even did the World Cup a couple of years ago with us live in our Cliff Central studios. We did our own live commentary. We'll speak to Kamo Mbatha, who is amazing. He was on KTV once. He used to be on 5FM with me for a while. He did sport on 5FM for me. He's also presenter at Supersport, currently running a boutique recording studio, among other things. So we'll have him on. We'll also be joined by one of our listeners, a guy called Stefano Battaglia, who's sent us an email, and we'll speak to him as well. So a whole lot of people pitching in, along with Ben and I, on the Qatar World Cup, and lots to talk about there as well. Plus, George Meaney a bit later on too. And there is a stadium shaped like a vagina, which we have to talk about later on too. So we have a very busy agenda of stuff to get through today. Let us know what you're up to. You can get hold of us on the WhatsApp line if you would like to do that. It's very, very easy. You could drop us a WhatsApp on 071-783-6214. All right, so let me address the first thing from yesterday, because we had a couple of comments. In fact, Mapelo put this comment up. I don't know how, but Mapelo put this up at 6:49 yesterday afternoon, before this show was even live. Please come back to the studio for just the Friday show at least. Okay, so Mapelo, first of all, I thoroughly enjoyed yesterday in the studio again. It felt like a real show. It felt like we were doing things properly. We had, a 3 or 4 cameras set up. It was superb. Michael and Ryan and Homolemo, they all put their and Simpiwe, because without Simpiwe running the show live, nothing would happen. This wouldn't even happen. So the 4 of them worked really hard to make yesterday what it was. But you need a lot of people to do something that is that good. And I do believe we also had 2 tremendous guests. I mean, we had, Pumi and I were in the studio. Canthan joined us later on. But we were, in the first hour, lucky enough to have Eugene Koza pop in. And in the second hour, we had the mayor of Johannesburg. So for whatever reason you missed yesterday's show, you missed out. But it looked superb on YouTube. And yes, that is the standard to which we should aspire. And the short answer to a very long question is that you have a point, Mapelo. And so does Retabile, who sent me this email yesterday. Hey, GC, great show today. Are you back in the studio, or Vandag was just once off? And then one other email quickly from Brandon. Caught a bit of the show live while on YouTube this morning. The studio setup looks superb. I've gotten used to the YouTube podcast remote format, and as someone who works permanently from home at the moment, I can't think of anything worse than going back to a corporate office, which, Granted, it's a slightly different environment to a radio studio, but I have to say I was surprised at the setup. It really had a very professional look and feel to the show. Reminds me a little more of the talk formats we've seen from Rogan, Andrew Schultz, etc. Well done. Keep up the good work and put me down for an order on that tequila. That's from Brandon. Okay, so the answer is yes. We do have to get back into the studio. I hate the idea because I woke up yesterday at like 4:45 again. You know, it's a struggle. It's a bunch of shit you have to arrange in your life suddenly when you're going back to the office. And, you know, I had a bunch of other appointments yesterday. So obviously by the time I got back here at like 4 in the afternoon, I was pretty tired. But then that's what normal people do. That's what all of us have to do. That's what we used to do before COVID, and we had no excuse. People said you were lazy as shit if you didn't do a full day's work. So I get it. And okay, we'll start off, we'll ease into it. The truth is, I am willing to do at least one show a week from the studio starting in January, and we will maybe make that 2 very shortly after that. But I think we've got a formula here that works, and we'll have to see exactly how we put it all together. But I think it's a distinct possibility that this is how things will happen. Remember, this show was never video. It was never on YouTube before COVID came along. We used to do like rare specials, like with Tuli Madonsela, or if there was a big international guest. Now we do all of our shows live on video and audio. It was always going to be a podcast show, but I suppose we can do both. And now that we know we can do both properly, we will. That's the short answer. I saw this, which I thought you needed to see this morning. If you're on YouTube, you need to watch this. It's 2 old people. Yeah, I love seeing happy people at whatever age, but this made me smile. So for a Friday morning, here's something to cheer you up. Okay?
What you say?
Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more.
Oh woman, don't treat me so mean. You're the meanest old woman that I've ever seen. I guess if you say so, I'll have to pack my things and go.
That's right, hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more, no more.
And tells me we're breaking some copyright regulation because other people play clips of things. You can do this on Instagram or on TikTok and nobody flags you. There used to be a time where they did that, by the way. Now, most of the stuff you can play on social media and nobody gets like called up for copyright regulation. So I promise you this video will be at least demonetized now. Not that I'm looking to make money out of YouTube. It's never really been an income source for us. But why is it that's flagged for copyright? Just because it's got that song in it. And if you didn't see it and you were listening on podcast, it's just 2 really old people. I mean, like really old, just having a dance, obviously in their little lounge or their nursing home or wherever they are. But these 2 can dance. You can see they love each other. The woman starts laughing halfway through. I just love that. That I could only wish that all of us would get old and look that happy because it looks fantastic. That's an old I could deal with. And you know, I'm not really looking forward to any old age myself. Kampamba says, is that Joe Biden? Nice Facebook jacket, G. Yeah, I bought this at Facebook headquarters in Palo Alto when I was in Silicon Valley. And so I wear it ironically from time to time because obviously, you know how I feel about Zuckerberg. But then people go, ooh, Facebook. And then, you know, they check you out like you might be one of the reptiles. Simon says, we are pack animals. My team is flourishing back. They have the option to work from home. Yeah, I think it's essential that we get back into the studio a little bit more, dip our toes back in it. Look, it's not that I'm afraid or that I was ever worried about COVID. And I'll get onto that in a second because we have beaten that horse to death. But it's more, this is just so convenient. And this show has to be something that works for everybody. It has to have. I need the show to grow, so we're going to be doing things that will grow the audience, that will make it more money, and that will fit more desirably into my life, because it's not going to be the only thing I'm going to be doing forever. I don't want to give it up at this point, but I want it to improve. I want all the parts of it to work in unison for a collective whole that works for everybody. And I think we can do that. Robert says that the audio quality is so much better in the studio. Yes, that is true too. And that is because it is a proper studio, soundproofed. It's got decent mics all around. You don't have any of the delays that you would with technical issues across the internet. So yes, I agree with you. All of that is true. So one last thing that I want to throw in here before we move on. I mentioned COVID just a second ago, because obviously some people have been back at the office for some time, but a lot of other people are still wondering, like, what happened? How could this happen? I spoke about that amnesty that the Atlantic was quietly publishing the other day, hoping that we would notice it and go, yeah, sure, we forgive all that stuff, and we don't mind if kids were stopped from going to school, kids were masked at age 5, which is just the cruelest thing. We'll look back on this and we will be horrified at what humans did to other humans during this time. All those old people who died in hospitals or on their own, they died of loneliness, of course, not of COVID. And the terrible things that we did, people prevented from seeing their own families, everything shut down, businesses destroyed. There are people going around now saying, oh, well, we didn't know. Well, Sweden knew. Here's the final word on this issue. And I promise you, I am not sick of telling everybody who was pro-lockdowns how wrong they were. You remember me having that argument on Ridi Tlabi's show with that petty socialist, where these people were saying, oh, no, we've got to do what the government says. Our health is the most important thing. They know what they're doing. The CDC, Dr. Fauci, lockdown, look at what the Chinese are doing. They're saving more lives. Well, here's the final bit of proof, the nail in their coffin. This was a tweet someone put out called Dr. Ellie David, who I've no doubt is someone of credibility, but he was probably part of that Barrington Declaration, the Great Barrington Declaration, which, of course, now everyone's on board with that. At the time, those doctors, including some of our South African doctors, were called the most terrible things: conspiracy theorists, crackpots, non-experts, all sorts of even more horrible pejorative terms than that. Dr. Ellie David says in his tweet, this is yesterday, excess mortality in Sweden versus Australia and New Zealand between 2020 and 2022, the ultimate proof that lockdowns killed more people than COVID. So what it is in this chart is Sweden, New Zealand, and Australia. Obviously, they compare the deaths. And then what they've done is looked at 2000, 2021, 2022, and then 22 to 23, which is where we're at the moment in terms of them doing the charts in advance. And you can see very clearly by the number of excess mortalities, excess deaths in all three of those countries, that by no stretch of your imagination or by any manipulation of the statistics can you make it look like Sweden performed worse than New Zealand or Australia. Australia and New Zealand did so much worse in every way, while Sweden took the brunt of their excess deaths in the first year because they didn't lock down and they didn't shut everything. They had a spike in the beginning, and remember, all of the lockdown people were saying, oh, that's proof Sweden's just as bad. Doesn't matter whether you lock down or don't. So the final word on this is this chart, and I advise you to look it up and to show everybody, because those deaths in green and red and black, those are deaths that didn't need to happen. Those are deaths that happened because of lockdowns. Okay, and that is essentially what people were arguing, people who knew what they were talking about. And don't say, oh, well, we were in the dark. We were making it up as we went. No, we weren't. There were precedents for this. We know how colds and flu worked before that. We know how viruses have worked for thousands of years. Here we are. We've got plenty of information. This is the capstone on this pyramid. Let's put it away now, and let's make sure that the people who made these terrible decisions are held accountable. That's what we want. Speaking of accountability, I am loving and I'm absolutely blown away by what Elon Musk is doing at the moment. Not because he's some genius and he's fixing Twitter. I think Twitter's still got major, major problems. But he's having so much fun that anyone who's watching him, even if you've never heard of Elon Musk in your life and you've never seen anything from him before, if you just watched him as a troll and as a person who's having a good time on social media, this is the most entertaining thing in the whole world right now. So we'll go into some of that a little bit later on. Talk about Elon and his tweets with some very famous people. Stephen King is having a shit fit about this verification for $8. I thought Stephen King had made tons and tons of money out of all of his horror books and all the movies that have been made from them. But clearly he's really cheap because he won't pay the $8 to keep his verification. So already there are two things that I think Elon has put into progress and into the system at the moment. He's the only director of Twitter. He's fired the whole board. The one is to establish some kind of thing where everybody can be verified if you just pay. Someone pointed out that the most interesting thing about that is that the people who are angry are not angry that $8 is too much. They're angry that $8 is too little because some of these people are more about trying to keep other people out than about trying to make themselves important or verified. And I think that's a good point. The other thing he's doing is that he, I believe, is going to limit the number of tweets you can post in, 10 minutes. Because that's how these bots have ruined the algorithm and how they've made it seem that certain issues are more important than they are. And you've seen companies that have paid or have set up a bunch of fake accounts in order to get themselves trending. You get trending topics. This is why I've always said a trending topic is not a real thing. It shouldn't be something that anyone aspires to. You could count whole marketing departments at big companies that are focused on getting themselves trending for some bullshit, like a logo change or whatever. And we've always wondered how that works. Well, now we know that it's bots who can, bots can tweet like 1,000 times in a minute. And if they limit that to, let's say, you can only tweet 10 times in a minute, then suddenly it doesn't matter what those bots do because a human can actually do as much. That's interesting. And I hope that it results in Twitter just being a little bit more believable and more real and populated by more humans than by robots. This is fantastic. It's a map. It's a map of Europe, and it says which country has the least attractive people according to Europe. So it's pretty much all orange because everyone in Europe, from Portugal, Spain, France, Holland, Belgium, Germany, Italy, Croatia, Slovakia, Slovenia, Poland, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark, Ireland, Romania, Bulgaria, and even Belarusia. All of those countries say that, sorry, that was the Ukraine, not Belarusia. The Ukraine, all of those countries say England has the least attractive people. Isn't that brilliant? So the English, according to all of Europe, with a few exceptions, has the least attractive people. I think that's pretty funny. The Turkish think they're the ugliest people, which is a whole different story. That's something to definitely think about and talk about. And the English think the Belgians are the ugliest. But I think that's quite telling that everyone in Europe, with the exception really of, who is it? I think we've got Montenegro, Greece, Turkey, and England themselves. With those exceptions, everyone believes England's the ugliest country by population, which is bloody funny. So let us know what you're up to this morning and what you've got planned for the weekend, because we are solidly into November now, and that means for a lot of people that's the holidays. The December is just about to begin. People are finishing up matric exams shortly. There's going to be a lot of really good, exciting summer stuff happening. Let us know what you're up to and if you've got your plans all sorted already. Jenny says it's the English and their teeth. It's a dead giveaway. Yeah, that is funny. And Sanela, going back to Twitter, says that they're angry because they want to feel special. Verification makes them feel like celebrities. Who cares about some blue badge? The tweet still looks the same as the rest. Well, yeah, you are right. You're not wrong at all. There are a lot of people who really put a huge amount of value or attach to their own personalities and identities a huge amount of value because of that little blue check mark. And maybe it would be a good thing to just get rid of it. The idea originally, correct me if I'm wrong, because a lot of people who listen to the show know more than I do. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the original idea of the verification was that you are who you say you are. I remember I've got a verified Twitter account, and it's only because at some point when I'd gone over 1 million followers, Twitter actually sent me an email or a direct message and said, we need you to verify that it is you. Please send us your ID or passport or proof of residence or some sort of indication that it is actually you who owns this account. So maybe that's still a good idea, just so we know that we're dealing with the real people. But if you think it's dumb, like I do, that people are just using it because they think it makes them feel famous and special, then we can get rid of it, right? So we'll look at that. The other thing, while we're talking about Musk, is Tesla have got a Chinese rival. Apparently, it's the most literal interpretation of the flying car that we've seen yet. Now, I get very nervous when I hear about anything made in China, and you could be, you could call me all kinds of things because of that. You might say that's a terrible preconceived notion. You're being stereotypical. Some people would even say you're saying be a bit racist about this. But the fact is, a lot of the stuff that comes out of China is horrible and rubbish, and they have a reputation which they've earned. I didn't give it to them for being quite crap about things. But Xpeng, or however you pronounce that, Xpeng is a Chinese electric vehicle which is going to compete with Tesla. They have unveiled their first flying car prototype. It is a car with 4 rotors on it, like a drone, enabling it to switch between driving and flying. A video of the vehicle's maiden voyage shows it roll out on a garage and take off. This is pretty wild. So it looks like halfway between a drone and a car. Let me just show you what the thing looks like. I'll show you a picture of it. If you're on YouTube, again, this is why you need to like and subscribe and follow us on YouTube. So get onto that ASAP, because I'm not going to beg you more or ask you twice. So this is what it looks like, the Xpeng. All right, this is according to Business Insider. Now, that looks ridiculous. First of all, if you park 2 of these next to each other, you're actually taking up 6 parkings if you park just 2 of these cars next to each other. So I don't know how it's going to work. It appears to me that those rotors don't fold in. So they're permanently a part of the car. So also when you're traveling in traffic, if a truck came alongside you, you'd have major problems because it would smash off 2 of your rotors. Shorter cars would be able to go under them, but taller cars, which it looks like most cars would be taller than this, would just get in the way. You'd have to take up 3 lanes on the road. Some roads, you obviously don't have that space. There are some roads you can barely get a normal car down. So I don't know how that's going to work, but it's worth exploring. I mean, I've been very bullish on flying cars for a long time, so I'm not going to write this off and say, oh, well, it's just bullshit. And good for the Chinese for at least trying this. It hovers a bit in the clip. It flies forward, spins in place, and then returns back to the launch pad. Most flying car ideas, they say, from startups are heavy on the flying, light on the car. They're personal aircraft that don't have wheels. But the X3 looks more like a road-going car that happens to be a giant drone when you look at the roof and what's attached to it. Designed for both air flight and road driving, the flying car conveniently features sleek rotor fold-away systems. Okay, so it can fold away, but you're still going to need a lot of space above. In other words, you can't fold it up inside the garage. It'll probably break the roof. So I'm not sure how this is going to work. I want to see more. I want to look at what it looks like when it's all folded away. And let's see which flying car eventually wins. I love the idea of flying cars. I've spoken about this before. Makes me very happy. But we got to find one that doesn't look stupid and that doesn't take up more space than it should. And so far, I'm a bit iffy on these things. Paintballs to be shot at Dutch wolves in a bid to make them less tame. Okay, so the Hollanders, the Dutch have this problem. The Hollanders, they've got this problem where wolves are getting a little bit too tame and they're moving into towns and they're becoming a pest. So what they're going to do is they're going to shoot paintballs at them. There are fears that wolves are becoming so unafraid of humans that they are a serious danger. The decision by the provincial government in Arnhem comes after a video posted on social media shows a wolf strolling past a family in a national park. Paintballs have been chosen so that the rangers can see which have been hit. It is hoped that this will encourage the wolves to stay 30 meters away or more from people. A spokesperson from the province told Dutch News that one of the wolves in particular appeared to be looking for people. Environmental organization Fauna Bescherming. That's okay, I can understand it. Fauna Bescherming is in Afrikaans would be protection. Has accused park officials of feeding the wolves because if they come up to people or they become too tame, they can be classed as problem animals and then will be culled. According to a recent report, there are 20 adult wolves living in the country. Only 20? And they're worried about this? 20? Seems ridiculous. This is, to have Holland's problems. If only 20 adult wolves. The announcement from the local government does not mean that anyone with a paintball gun can head to the park and start shooting at the wolves. No, because people will, right? No date has been set for when the measure will start, and it will be carried out by people who are authorized. This is Europe. They have a regulation. Only the authorized people will be allowed to shoot the wolves. That's what they're saying. So very, very important. All right. Ben will be joining us shortly. We'll be talking about a bunch of things, including these Elon Musk tweets. I've got a couple of those we'll look at. It's really, really funny. Some of the comments. Nico says, remember where dogs come from? Of course it would have happened. And we allowed them to become that tame. I look at so many dogs, Nico, and I can't believe that they come from wolves. I look at this puppy of mine who's now 10 months old. And she bears no resemblance to a wolf at all. My sister's little corgi, yes, I can see a bit of wolf going on there. Obviously, Alsatians, German Shepherds, you can see a bit of wolf going on there too. Malamutes, definitely. Huskies. But a toy pom, Maltese poodle. I mean, I almost wonder what a wolf would think. If it encountered one of these things, it would just see food. My Jack Russell says Corona's boring is 90% wolf in his mind. That's about right. Oh, yes, a good point being raised by Sanella here. We'll ask George Meaney what he thinks of that Chinese car a bit later on. Definitely. All right, some other things. Red Robin says, I'm so ugly, I scared the crap out of the toilet. In fact, hang on. There we go. Flying cars already exist. They're called helicopters. Yeah. And look how much space they take, and you need a pilot's license. And look, you will need to obviously license flying cars as well. There's no way you just fly these things. We'll need lanes. I mean, imagine if everybody had a flying car. and the sky became as crowded as the streets. It's a possibility. Here is Ben. Good morning, Ben.
Hey, Gareth. Good morning. Happy Friday.
Hang on, it's my fault. Go ahead.
What? Oh, hi. Hi, Gareth. Happy Friday. I'll do that again.
Happy Friday.
Yeah,
How you doing?
Very
Good.
good. Thanks. Very good. Very fresh. Happy for a Friday.
Yeah, I love the fact that there was a little bit of rain by the looks of things last night. Love waking up in the rain, and I love waking up to that smell of rain. And I'm excited about the weekend. I'm excited about all these weekends going down to Christmas and New Year, and the World Cup, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, because I didn't even realize it's like this month. I mean, I knew it was somewhere this year, and I knew they'd moved it because of Qatar, but we'll be talking about that later on.
Exactly. The World Cup in Qatar.
Well, you know how much I love the World Cup. So again, let's put a pause on that until later, because I can feel myself getting a little bit excited now that I'm aware of it. But up to now, not a peep, nothing, zero. Okay. Ben, your input on the Box team and the prediction for tomorrow. I'm sorry to put you back in the role of sports guy, but Nico wants to know.
Nico, we're playing against the second best team in the world this weekend, and the best team in the world next week. I think it is a challenge that if we win these games, I'm going to be so incredibly impressed and slightly surprised. There's something about Northern Hemisphere this time of year, and these teams have got so much better. My heart and my head both say we're going to lose against Ireland, but actually win against France. That would be my prediction. And as for the team, the fly-off issue. It's about having a proven match winner when you're playing tight technical games. Damon Willemse is a superstar. I see that a lot of pressure on him. He's not meant to be a fly-off. I think he's an incredible inside center / fullback. Sorry, Nick. It's too early in the day for me to really get into this.
That's pretty good. It's better than anything I could venture. So good stuff. Oh, listen, congratulations! I saw you and Sharman got some awards last night.
Well, we won a Pen Doring, Gareth, and it was quite a big full circle moment for me in my life, really. The last time I was at the UJ Theatre, I think it's the UJ Theatre, I think it's its official name, was like 14 years ago. And I was on the stage with my cock wrapped around my wrist doing a wristwatch for the show Puppetry of the Penis with these two naked Australians. And last night there I was, fully clothed in a jacket, looking smart,
getting an award
for a documentary. Talk about full circle, huh?
So what's the documentary? I mean, this is cool. Well done.
So that was that my Pimpy documentary that we heart and soul into. And obviously with the award seasons, how they roll around as they go in a cycle. And the Pen Dorings is probably the last one that we've entered that one into. But it was a really cool moment. That's what I love about living in a place like Joburg. You've got memories and there's certain things. And to think 14 years ago, I was a very different person to the person I am now. And it made me laugh.
I have to say, I never thought I'd say this, but seeing these awards shows and these dinners and these events and year-end functions again makes me happy. There was a time where I was very jaded about these. I went to too many of them. I was obviously emceeing a few of them. I was invited to some of them, and I just got to be very boring. But I've realized now how important these things are for people to get out, for people to be acknowledged, for people to receive adulation and credit for good work. It's really important. And if not for you, for the reputation of your business and for your clients to get the recognition that they deserve. There is a place for this stuff. And for a couple of years now, it's been on pause. And you imagine being in the events industry, how that's just gone down the toilet. And now suddenly you're seeing these green shoots. And, I've been to 3 dinners, and awards shows in the last 3 weeks, which is terrific. And I can't say how good it is to see people face to face again, see them interacting normally, see them partying afterwards and having drinks together and celebrating each other. It's really, really important. Humans need to do this.
We really do, and you're right. And there's a whole thing about recognition, because all our jobs, now that we're remote workers, we were remote workers during COVID, everything felt a bit meaningless, And as much as I've never been a biggest fan of awards, because I feel a lot of them are quite contrived, last night at the Pen Dorings, I had a very different kind of view on this, because This is an award ceremony that celebrates like mother tongues, like native language in this country. And the actual show itself, because of that, was so damn interesting because you are ranging from all the different sort of language that people use and communicate with and trade in, I guess, in this country. And the awards were totally across that. So it wasn't just about having a big budget and a big brand to work on with something fancy and like CGI and all this kind of stuff. It's
Right.
about connecting with communities and really using creativity in the way I think it should be used. And it keeps going back to like when people say like, what do you think of Australia? And I keep saying it's like, it's great, but you're going to meet the same person over and over and over. Whereas last night just kind of reminded me that this place is just so damn interesting. Like there's no two people alike, I'm not going to meet the version of me there. I met about 73 different other sort of people that maybe I hadn't seen before. And that's cool. That's what's just really so cool about this place.
I love it. I love it. I was on the show yesterday. We were in studio again for the first time in 2 years. The whole crew, which was very, very nice. And Canthan said to the mayor of Joburg, "You better fix this place because I'm not moving," which I thought was like, instead of us giving up and deciding, oh well, and a lot of people have decided to do this. We've discussed it ad infinitum on the show. I'm going to move to wherever. Why don't we just say to these people who are in charge and up to now have fucked up so badly, fix it because we're not leaving. We'll chase you away if you don't fix it. That's what we should.
It's such a good point. And I went to another really interesting event on Monday at the Joburg Startup Club. And there was a guy, one of the best speeches I've heard in quite some time. It wasn't really a speech. It was just like an open sort of interview, like a panel discussion. A guy called Mitch Adams. He started Ozo and a couple of other things around that sort of space.
Yeah.
And his viewpoint is, what am I going to do? I've got enough money, okay, so I can go somewhere and just plug into some other place. But then what? Cool, I'm safer. But he said, like, what if all South Africans kind of had a different sort of mindset? Like, what if we made a business out of fixing all this shit here? So ultimately, that's what government should do, right? They should do the stuff that they're meant to do. But we know they're absolutely useless pieces of shit. So his whole mindset is, I want to fix South Africa and I'll make business out of it. So he has this amazing SME entrepreneurship sort of platform because that is his way of giving back and fixing problems.
Sure.
So, we've spoken about this so many times. Like I get immigration because a lot of people just want to plug into a first world and exist until they no longer breathe, which is cool. That's how some people like to live. But if you have the means, the desire, and a little bit of, personality and a bit of pride in where you are, that's a much better mindset. Like, what if we just look at this, like, just like you said, what if we reframe this? Like, what if we stay? Then what? What can we do? And the potential is huge.
Well, I know also, I mean, you were talking about your Mpimpi documentary, which I think is terrific. But there are so many other stories that need telling. So many.
Exactly.
And we've got great real stories that we don't have to make shit up. We don't have to have Wakanda. If you actually know the history of the Zulu kingdom, Wakanda is boring.
So boring. It's so boring. It's so shit. It's so contrived.
If you actually go into, yesterday I was sitting talking to Muzi Kuzwayo, who I love spending 5 minutes with. If I have 5 minutes, if he has 5 minutes, I mean, it's just, this guy is just fantastic, right? And he was telling me about a friend of theirs who has written this book about Zulu history, and she knows just everything. She spent years studying it. She's at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and he's trying to get me a copy of this book because he said there's some things that people just don't know because no one's really paying attention to it. He says if you told these stories, Hollywood would snap them up like that. And it got me thinking, like, there's enormous potential. Forget about solving the problems like you just pointed out now already. I mean, that's obviously a way to make money and to improve the place. You can do good things and you can make yourself wealthy.
Yeah, because it has to be an incentive. We're not all just doing it for the goodness of our own heart.
Right. Nobody on earth is perfectly altruistic. No one.
Yeah.
And that, funnily enough, that also came up with the mayor of Joburg yesterday, Popalatse. But it's interesting to me that, the people who win, they've decided in advance that they are positive, optimistic, and they're looking for opportunities. The people who lose have decided in advance that they're going to lose. That's just how it works.
Well,
Starts right there.
they've also decided in advance that it's all to chance, you know. Oh, I don't know, I'm not lucky, or it's not meant to be. You know, fuck that. You can do it. You
Yeah.
can change it. But you know, as you talk about the whole sort of the story thing, you know, I think a lot of
Yeah.
South Africans just don't have a lot of pride in what they do. And you look at sort of crime. Yes, there's various aspects to crime. It's a very nuanced debate. But if you have pride in your country, in yourself, and all these kind of things, like you won't litter, you won't steal, you won't murder, you won't rape. Some people are fucking horrible and they will do that. I get that. But if you were to instill pride in every single person here, I reckon it'll bring crime down hugely. And what makes pride swell? It's like really good stories, you know, like you just said with the whole Zulu story. What if you knew more about that and you weren't just outsourcing to Marvel to tell you some stupid story and then that's like going to be your thing to go to?
Yeah. Well, it would require people to read, which
There's the kicker, Gareth. There's the kicker. You'd have to
maybe
pick a book.
if we make movies, and you know what, one of the comments here is quite right. They're going to make a new Shaka series, which is going to come out soon. You have to see the trailer, says Kapamba. Yeah, I will. I love Zulu history, so I'm big into this. But what I discussed with Muzi yesterday is that next year, he and I are going to do a road trip for a week through KZN. And he's going to take me, he's going to take me on a tour with this historian that he knows, and I'm going to see all this stuff for myself, and we'll document it and turn it into something, which will be really cool. So maybe that'll add value as well. But yeah, you're right. I mean, like we have to start believing in ourselves. And I think a big problem in America right now is that they don't believe in themselves. But
such a good point. Yeah.
I will say, just because it's something that I know you found as entertaining as I have, Elon Musk is having more fun than anyone else right now. This is just, if you ever wanted to see a CEO just loving what he does, and obviously he's just fucking around at the moment. He has real business plans. He's already introduced this idea of people having to pay for verification, which I want to hear your opinion of. That'll bring in like millions and millions of dollars in revenue, which doesn't require advertisers. And we all know, you're in the same business as I am. Advertising money, sponsorship money is hard to work, to find, to keep, to grow. It's a losing battle if you're not the monsters in the room like Facebook or you know, Google or Amazon. So there's got to be other ways to generate income, and he's already coming up with those. And Twitter's been sitting on its hands for all the time it's been in existence. So that's good. Yeah. But what's the funniest stuff you've seen?
Well, he's been like this from the start. It's not like suddenly he's employed, you know, Ryan Reynolds to be funny. Like Elon's got a good mind on him. Like I'm not one of those Elon fanboys, because when you really sort of break it down, he's also like very attached to this new world order kind of vibe, you know, like the microchip in the brain, electric cars.
Got terrible taste in women. Terrible.
Far too many. I mean, like, yeah, but I love the fact that he is just doing what he believes he wants to do, and I think that's also just a really, really cool thing. And the thing that he's doing with Twitter is that Twitter is a platform just like anything else, right? So YouTube monetizes things. You get YouTube Premium, which I think is a really cool service because you don't get ads. As a creator, there's major benefits. So all he's doing is going along the similar kind of model, because Twitter is like, if you think of it like a city, it's pretty much like Joburg, really. No one invests in it. People just throw shit. It's got so much potential, but no one's willing to give back. Everybody is entitled. Everyone sits back and expects someone else to do it. What he's saying is like, okay, cool. So the verification thing, it means something. It's a status thing. There'll be a couple of other benefits too. So there'll be a paid service. So if you want that, liberties, you're not going to get it for free. And everyone who's a creator can do the same. $8, great. I'm a massive believer in, if you do something good in life, you know, like I subscribe to a fitness platform. I don't need any of the information, but I like the guy's podcast. So I pay him $9 a month because I like what he does. And I really support people who do these kind of things. So Elon wants $8. I mean, I'd pay $8 just to kind of follow him every month. And the way that he has cracks at people who are entitled, stupid, and just so full of themselves. So it's nothing more than a service, really. People got to understand that everything costs in life. Like, look at this tweet, okay? That's just...
So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who's a congresswoman from New York, says,
pseudo-socialist.
LMAO, laugh my ass off at a billionaire earnestly trying to sell people on the idea that free speech is actually $8 per month subscription plan. With her blue check mark there, I see firmly placed next to her name. And Elon Musk replies, "Your feedback is appreciated. Now pay $8." You know?
That's amazing. I mean, this chick is such a waste of time. She's such a fucking horrible hypocrite socialist person. Like this whole thing about firstly she demonizes like the word billionaire like a derogatory kind of term, and then she puts free speech again. Fuck, these people are the worst, and Elon is like the antithesis of this, which is really good. And Twitter should be about this.
I mean, this is probably the first time in history that non-aristocrats, in other words, people who just didn't inherit piles and piles of money from whoever came before them, can do anything they want or do nothing and still live.
Yeah.
Like there are professional nothing doers in the world. They're actually even in a country like South Africa, which we're not a rich country. I know people who are wholly dependent in their 30s on their parents.
Wow.
Now, those people are the luckiest people who've ever lived in human history. They're obviously a waste of time and space too, and you wouldn't want to spend more than 5 minutes with them because they're entitled shits who have nothing to contribute. That's why they can't do anything. No one's going to ever pay them to do anything because they're useless. But it's a phenomenon. It is an absolute mindfuck that there are people who can sit around doing nothing all the way into their 30s in a country like this.
Yeah,
you know,
that's quite something.
And what he's talking about there, where he's like, you've got to pay for this. This is not for free. See, if you get something for nothing, if I give you an iPhone, you may think, oh, that's great. You'll feel good about having something for free for a couple of minutes. You may even have for a few days. You'll be grateful. You send me a WhatsApp and say, thanks very much on your new phone for my new phone. But you don't value it deep down inside because you haven't worked for it. This is something we've forgotten as human beings, and it's something worth reflecting on just for a minute, is there was a time where in order to have something, you needed to work for it, even for your food. In order to eat vegetables, you had to first grow those vegetables. There were no fruits just hanging off of trees and wild animals just walking into your enclosure and lying down so that you could cut them up and eat them. Everything you did required work and sacrifice. And so you had pride in it, but you valued the work itself. Now you've got people going, I don't want to do that. It feels like hard work. I would rather just sit at home and let someone deliver it to me.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why we don't appreciate anything anymore. And this is why so many people are wandering around the world going, work is a burden. Why do I have to work? I want to just travel and have fun and party and drink and be with my friends and all that, which is fine. But those are the rewards for a hard day's work. You don't get to have fun if you haven't done a hard day's work. And somehow we've decided, only in this generation, maybe 2 generations, 3 generations that are alive at the moment, certainly not, my grandparents' generation, they didn't know what this was, that we've decided work is a burden. It's unfair. We should be able to spend our time doing arts and crafts. This is a novel idea, and I don't think it's good for us, actually.
No, it's really not. And I think that's why the filthy socialists need to be called out at every single stage, because they're the ones that are deluding the youth with all these kind of like skewed ideas about what economics is. And the only reason they got there because someone worked hard to give them a life that's easy. And it's a perpetual cycle that it's just, you've got to learn 2 things in the world: who pays for things in the world and how it all came to be. So learn history, learn economics, but really understand them. We spoke about the whole Shaka Zulu story. That story will horrify people at what an absolute giant fucking bastard that guy was. He was an absolute demon. Like, he was so horrible. But in the context of where everything came from, he had an important role to play. And you understand his life, you understand where we've come from as people, how we've got better, how we've engaged, how we've interacted. We've got like history. I mean, so no point telling you this because you agree with me, but history is not emphasized enough. That also teach
Well,
about economics too.
it's the only subject you do at school that teaches you about people, and most people don't do history. So they never learn about people. And then they're shocked and horrified when they enter the workplace and the boss says, I need you to work. They're like, oh, I thought I was just coming here to clock in. I don't know if you ever saw, because we're talking about Elon Musk, I don't know if you ever saw that video. It was doing the rounds maybe 6 months ago of this girl who worked at Twitter and what she did during the day at Twitter. Did you see what this is before Elon? Okay, so I'm going to try and find it and send it to you, but I can't find it now while we're doing the show. This girl walks in to the office at like 9 o'clock in the morning. The first thing she does is she goes to this amazing canteen, which looks like a 5-star restaurant, right? Because if you've ever been to Silicon Valley and you see, like this is where I bought this top, you see the kind of environment that has been created for these precious employees there. Obviously, the reason it's so competitive, the reason they've made it such a wonderful place to work, and they've turned it into like a millennial's wet dream, is because these coders and these engineers and these really, really qualified people who can do all the software engineering and the building behind the scenes that makes all these platforms work, they are hard to come by. The best ones cost a fortune, right?
Yeah.
And up to now, there have been less of them than there have been jobs available. In other words, the demand for them was very high. So they had to build these like beanbag offices with like climbing walls and sleeping pods and meditation rooms and yoga classes at 9:30 and paddle in the afternoons and, all these things that they could do just to attract these really talented people and these very well-qualified people that they needed to have. Of course, all of that has changed now. But this girl went into this office. I kid you not, she takes you on like must be about a 5-minute tour with like cheesy music playing in the background. This place looked to me more like a summer camp for a 13-year-old than an office where people do work. There were desks, but they were completely bare because people would they bring their laptop and sit down wherever. There was no idea that there was actually productivity happening there. There was nothing being produced. And I think this is part of the problem for a lot of these social media companies, is that they weren't producing a product. We were the product, right? Now that they're going to charge $8, it becomes a product again. They've got to give you $8 worth of value in return. So there's going to be a different change. There's going to be a cultural change inside these companies, which is interesting. And I think we're lucky to be able to watch this happen in real time now, because they're going to have to derive value out of Twitter, not just for shareholders, but for users. And we've all seen the value so far in like getting news or being connected to the world. And we know what the positives of Twitter are, but we know that these huge negatives, which have chased a lot of people like me right off the platform. So now maybe because there's someone with a business brain in charge there, and there will be other people brought in. This is what I'm excited about, by the way. Elon can't do everything. He's one man. He's got a bunch of companies to run, but he'll hire people now who will have a completely different way of working. They're not going to be these millennials who arrive at the office. And I know there are good millennials, don't get me wrong. But there are a lot of them who are just layabouts. He's not going to hire people who will need to go to the sleeping pod 3 times a day and, will want a toasted sandwich with truffles on it. Instead, they're going to be people at those desks actually figuring out how to make Twitter a better experience for everyone, not just for political activists and blue checkmark people and journalists. And I think that's quite exciting. I mean, this video is frightening because anyone in South Africa who has a job, whatever your job is, and there are easier jobs and there are harder jobs, but I promise you watching this video will drive you mad because you'll think this person's earning probably way more than any of us, right? And she's doing nothing. I can tell you during the course of that video, there is not even any evidence, not even the slightest shred of evidence that this person can do anything that is useful to the rest of humanity. So you ask yourself by the end of it, and she put this out. She's proud of it. She's like, look at my job. I do nothing all day, and I get paid to eat, sleep, be with my friends, do fitness classes and yoga and stuff in office hours. And then people in South Africa are waking up at 4 a.m. to squeeze in gym, to drop the kids at school, to get to the office in time so they don't get shat on, to go through meetings, to do hard work, sometimes hard labor. You can imagine. People watch that and they go, what? This is a person who calls that work? It's crazy.
But it's not sustainable, I guess. This is the thing, So people think that's, this is the world we live in now. But ultimately, someone's got to pay the rent. Someone's got to step up to something. And this is why capitalism always wins, right? Because it's just natural order. This is what has to. It's always going to be the case. I would love to see this video, though, because it's nice to look at fairy tale people from time to time.
Dogoza says, sleeping pods are amazing. I'm one of those millennials and worked for a company in Cape Town that had some sleeping pods. Naps are amazing for productivity. Sure. Listen, there's a balance. I'm not saying that we must throw all of that out. And George says that his office at Auto Trader, they offer many of those things, but people are held accountable for their value and output, not their time. This culminates in people hardly using it. Right. But it's nice that it's there. And there hasn't been one of us who hasn't at some point at the office thought, if I could just have a 20-minute nap, I would be so much more productive after this. So I'm not saying we must throw the baby out with the bathwater. But
I'm going to do it today. I'm going to have a nap. I went to bed very late last night, missed about 2 hours of sleep. I'm going to have a nap on my big pink couch.
Good. And then Carl has some useful advice for me here. He says, Gareth, you've been in broadcasting for a long time now. It's time you learn the difference between less and fewer. Please, my boy. All right. You know what, Carl? There's some things I'm old dog, new tricks. Probably not going to happen.
Less out of you, Carl. We need fewer people like you.
Is it fewer people that like you? Is that correct?
I don't know. I'm mostly illiterate. I'm on this show mostly to learn things.
Okay. All right. Brilliant. Ben is with us. We've got to talk about the Qatar World Cup. We want to hear from you. Let us know what you're up to on the WhatsApp line as well. You can do that immediately. You can also get us on the comments on YouTube. Like and subscribe, blah, 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 etc., etc. We'll see you in a minute. Don't go anywhere.
Hi, I'm Barrett Edelstein. Join me for my podcast, Celeb Savant. Today, I'm with Sophie Ellis-Bextor.
So right at the moment, I'm at home in London. But after I speak to you, I'm going to pack my bags.
3 of the members of UB40, Earl, Matt, and Jimmy.
Well, we're in the middle of a tour at the moment.
Career retrospective with actors, singers, and entertainment industry experts every Friday morning at 9 o'clock on cliffcentral.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
This week on the Auto Trader podcast. Yes. So the theory there is essentially that car companies are deliberately making the quality of the material, and it could be end components in the car, really, die out at a certain time to make sure that you come back and buy this new components or even a new car.
Okay, forget the components for a second. Let's talk about the overall thing, the plan of obsolescence. Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
Yeah, boy, it is Friday morning on cliffcentral.com, and Ben is with us. We've also got a bunch of other guests joining us in a short while, talking about the Qatar World Cup, which is going to be on our screens soon. Are you excited about it? Did you even know that it was coming? Because I have to say, like, it took me a minute to realize it's now. By the way, you've started doing these cold plunges. You've bought a bath, which you've put up on your roof, and you fill it with ice water.
Well, obviously, just put the water down, and then about 20 kilograms of ice make for a perfect bath. It's quite a big bath, and it might just be the best 3,000 ront that I've spent this year.
Why? It sounds horrible, Ben.
Well, Gareth, everything in life is horrible if your mindset's towards that. Cold therapy is amazing. It really is. What it does to your mind, I mean, I don't want to get and sound like an expert about this thing, but I went to a cold plunge kind of session about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And it was with these people who do like these kind of wellness retreats and these biohacking things. And I'm not really big on these phrases. Like, you know, I don't label myself as being a reverse ager or biohacker, because I don't like those things. But it just makes a lot of sense that we have to have some hardship in our life. And the way I like these kind of things is that a couple of minutes of hardship means huge amounts of benefit. And because our entire lives are kind of destined towards comfort, and we seek comfort and we're told to go to comfort, we become quite lazy. And like I'm quite a big procrastinator. Like I'm not as decisive as I would like to be in sometimes. But when you do more and more shit like this, it really is just great to get you to do something. So yeah, you can go into the scientific benefits. There's various papers that have been released, and you get people at Joe Rogan's interview who talk about cold therapy and heat shock proteins, all these kind of things. For me, it's just always silencing your little inner bitch, because that little inner bitch stops you from doing so many good things in life. But every morning, I now wake up 10 to 5, it's fucking cold, and I get into a bath that's even fucking colder. And what that tells me is that every single day, if I have something I don't want to do, tough shit, you can do it, so do it. And it starts with that. So yes, there's a physical benefits, that's amazing. But the mental for me is so important, and yeah, it makes me more confident, makes me stronger. Simple, really.
Have you got a massive freezer to keep 20 kilograms of ice in?
No, unfortunately not. I have 100 Rand in my wallet, and I give it to someone at a service station, and they give me 6 bags of ice.
And you have to haul them upstairs as well.
Yeah, a bit of a mission. I really should get a big chest freezer. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm new to this, but doing this by myself. But it's a beautiful tub. It looks cool on my roof, and yeah, it's a really cool feature. And yeah, like seriously, it's most of these things, just like exercise. Yes, it's great to have muscles. It's great to be strong, all this kind of stuff. But all these things, what it does to your mind, as I've always said, is the most important thing. Because I went through a stage where I was sad and lame and indecisive and all these other kind of shit things during COVID. And it's just how
you were very irritating during that time.
I'm sure. Thanks. But, you know, Gareth, it's about understanding these things and trying to find fucking solutions rather than more moans. And yeah, so.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's for you. I mean, it reminds me of like when Mbulelo used to try and talk me into doing marathons and shit. And I was like, are you insane? It's something that'll never happen for me. And I'm glad when people find things in their own life that they feel adds value, whatever it might be. I don't mock and ridicule those people. You know, some people it's religion, some people it's bridge club, some people it's participating in some kind of group, some sort of, you know, club that they belong to. Whatever it is, good. You do that because if it works for you, it works for you. Full stop. No one else can tell you it's bad. If it's really important for you, to listen to a certain podcast or to wash your hands 8 times a day, or if it's really important to you to have a pet that you can, you know, you can cohabit with, whatever it is. It could be that you have 3 wives. That's if that's your thing, that's your thing. Awesome. Go for it. As long as you're not hurting anybody, I think it's great. I just wonder if so many of these things, and it's no criticism of you or the cold baths, but I wonder if so many of these things aren't just as a result of the fact that our lives are so cushy. Like people in history, again, to go back to history, they didn't have to do things like, because the only water available to them was cold water. So they just avoided it until it was the warmest time of day. And if they washed at all, that was when they did it. But now we almost have to seek out things that are uncomfortable and unpleasant and that challenge us and that push us a bit, because otherwise we're not going to get better.
Gareth, we spend a lot of our day staring at the screen over here while eating shit that is basically produced. Yes, we've come so far away from where we should be. It's simple as that. And Kelly, screw you, saying here, Ben and his gimmicks. What fucking gimmicks? I believe it's every man's obligation to try to be stronger, better, and less full of shit. And every single day I'm curious as to how do I process that? How do I become better at that? Otherwise, must I sit and watch Netflix and fucking
on the note of these things, I'm very proud to say that I've been measuring my screen time because I realized like I've got this ability to actually see how much time I'm spending on my phone. And I've cut mine down to 25% of what it was a month ago.
That's amazing. That's huge.
And I really limit it. Like, for example, during the day, especially if I'm doing something else, the phone can be playing a podcast or music or whatever, but that's all. I don't look at it until, so I take 2-3 hour things where if I don't reply to your message, it's because for those 2-3 hours, I'm not watching my screen. And you'll be surprised. Like, no one's going to, you're not the Pope. You're not Joe Biden. Everybody's like, oh, but what if there's an emergency? There was a time when we didn't have phones and people made it. That's how you're alive now. Your parents, your grandparents, great-grandparents, they made it. They survived without a phone in an emergency. So you will too. Get away from it.
Yeah.
Such a good idea.
Stimulate yourself in ways.
All right. Carl says what's important to him is correcting my grammar. Good. I need a bit of correction here and there. I'm only too happy to take the criticism, but I'm learning this difference between fewer and less. Why don't you start by explaining it to us? That would be helpful. So, Carl, if you could do that, that would be great. Ancient Ether says cold water keeps the pores in our cells closed. When our cells sit in cold water without water getting into the actual cells, it's energizing. Does that make sense to you, Ben?
Sure. But Kelly and Carl have a go at the fact that I'm just trying to bring gimmicks. It's like when you do things that are different to people, you see it as like gimmicks or it's like something different. Maybe that's just the norm that everyone's just fallen away from.
Just be honest. Fat boy. Cook Ooh, the greatest name on the comments section today. Cook Ooh says, I'm with Ben. The mornings I get to swim in the effing cold sea here in Cape Town, I feel so much more alive, rejuvenated, and my mind is clear. It's a magic trick.
It's the guys. Seriously, you've got to try it in this respect. I mean, Gareth, I know this stuff doesn't appeal to you whatsoever, and that's you, and that's great. But the clarity of mind, it's a wonderful thing.
I did a cold shower the other day, and it was very unpleasant, but I did feel good afterwards.
Yeah, so it's just levels. All of these things are levels. If you want to do better, there's obviously rabbit holes you get into, and it becomes quite cult-like. I totally get that, and I actually appreciate that because I derive a lot of humor from that. So yes, I know you're teasing me, and I'm throwing it back at you, Kelly. Fuck. I mean, I take very little in life seriously. Okay, I like to be confrontational. I'm really not taking this to personal heart, but there's levels to all these kind of things. And just find whatever level it is for you. But the important thing is to keep trying different stuff because it's fucking invigorating. It really is.
Sorry. I had my thing on mute. I was like, why are someone brought up the Vikings here, just playing Jared, and how they got across the ocean on just a tiny little boat. Speaking of which, I was at a function the other day, and they were talking about the World Cup, and I suddenly went, oh, shit, that's this year, right? Now, Ben, you've known me for a long time. You know what a fan of the World Cup I am.
Yeah, that's the one sporting event you care about.
I really get into it. I become one of those fanatical supporters. I don't miss a minute of any game. I sit there for like 10 minutes beforehand, make sure I've got a drink or a coffee or something. I'm usually with people. It's not something I watch on my own, and it's something I really get into. And it's probably, as you point out, the only thing that is in the sports realm that I give a shit about. So I got an email from Stefano, who's going to join us in a moment. Hey, Steph, how are you?
Morning, guys. How you doing?
Good, man. Are you in Italy at the moment?
I am. I live in Milan now.
Very nice. All right. And you're originally from South Africa?
Yeah, I was born and I grew up there, and I moved here about 10 years ago.
Okay, but you are Italian. I mean, your surname gives that away, right? Battaglia.
I am. I grew up in an Italian family, Italian parents, but I consider myself pretty much South African. You can hear I haven't lost my accent.
No, you sound very South African. So you said in your email, I know you're not into sport, Gareth, but I wanted to run this by you. The FIFA World Cup starts in a few days in Qatar, and I'm thinking of not watching a single game. As it's being held in November due to the desert climate, it's a clear indication the whole thing is rigged. The World Cup has been always during the European summer. The fact that the organizers have been able to suspend the whole European football season to hold the World Cup is indicative of corruption 101. Since I was a child, I've always looked forward to the World Cup every 4 years. It usually creates wonderful sporting memories for me. Not this time. It's all a farce, and for this reason, I don't think I'll be watching a game. So I took your email very seriously, Steph, because I kind of think I feel the same way. Ben, you're not a big fan of them having chosen Qatar 10 years ago in the first place, right?
Stefano's not going to watch because Italy didn't qualify.
Again, twice in a row.
Busted. Short compensation. There we go.
All right. Let's bring Kamo in here. Kamza, it's nice to see you, dude. He popped into our office yesterday for a meeting. I haven't seen you in ages, and now I'm seeing you 2 days in a row. I like this.
Hey, guys. Sorry. I just had to put all this together. I hope you can hear me. I'm using my camera on the webcam. I have a nicer camera, but it's being silly at the moment. That's exactly what I thought when I saw his name and surname. I was like, oh, here we go. Here's a guy who's not going to watch purely because Italy aren't in it.
I can defend myself. I watched the last one in Russia, and Italy wasn't in that one either, and I enjoyed it. So that's not only the reason.
All right. Well, so come on, are you excited about it?
Listen, man, it's the pinnacle of everything, right? Everyone looks at a World Cup and thinks it's just the best of soccer, but it's the best directors, it's the best stage managers, it's the best coaches, you know what I mean? It's the best facilities, so it's the best of the best. So if you want to see a show mark or a showpiece event, you know, over a course of a month, it's great. And, you know, things in that region usually are like an expo for like 5 years. So, you know, to have one that's kind of short and concise and shows off a country and, you know, kind of ticks all the boxes as to what they were trying to do, it is what it is. You know, there's a lot of obviously emotion around this one, purely because of what we heard around the migrant workers and the conditions there. So people have a moral, you know, itch to kind of, you know, not watch this one because of that. But I don't think it's sustainable. I think, you know, the fact that the athletes are going means people are going to watch.
All right, so let me play the devil's advocate here, and I want you to try and do this too, Ben and Kamo, even though you've explained how you feel about it. But
you don't have to force me.
Yeah, let's just talk about Qatar, because we all were surprised. I mean, were we really? I mean, FIFA. Okay, so South Africa was really well run in 2010 when we had President Sepp Blatter, and since then FIFA has been. I mean, these guys are probably one of the most corrupt collections of people in all of human history. Sure, they put on all those great shows that you're talking about now, Kamo. And Steph, you and I are big fans of the World Cup, so it's not as if we're going to argue on that front. But
absolutely,
what's going on with this Qatar thing? All right, Ben, you start off, because I know you've said some things about Qatar in the past. And we're a free platform. You don't have to worry. None of us are going to have our tickets taken away. Are any of you going? No. So tell me what you think about this without worrying about what Qatar thinks of you.
Well, Gareth, when I was still working full-time on your show, we got really into Qatar and all these kind of things, and we pulled the ringer out of it. The bottom line is that there's not a chance in hell that they should ever have a FIFA World Cup there. It doesn't make any sense. They do not have the football culture. They do not have the local fan bases to really engage in this thing. They don't even have the stadiums or the infrastructure around this. It's absolutely not happening. The essence of what we as fans believe the World Cup should be is that it brings the world to a place to believe in the culture and the beauty of the beautiful game. But then you also got to look at from the other side of things, is that FIFA literally were back in the day a bunch of guys that got together who didn't like the British and who weren't British and said, okay, we're going to own football. It's like basically saying, okay, I'm going to call the sky a door. They just basically a very contrived thing. So you've also got to ask yourself the question, how much corruption is FIFA actually entitled to? Because they kind of own it, right? They don't even think it's corruption. They're running their business. So when Qatar went to them, and don't tell me this wasn't bribed, because England were actually, ironically, for my reference, England were favourites to win this one. Prince William was there with his ringing hands and his terrible baldness. And then out of nowhere, it's like David Beckham was there. And they're like, oh, yeah, guys, so the winner of the 2022 FIFA World Cup is Qatar. And everyone's like, what the fuck are you talking about? So what is a Qatar anyway? But that's what FIFA has opened themselves up to. Their whole thing is like, well, we own football, so we'll do what the fuck we want with it. I mean, look at the track record, right? If it doesn't look great in the human rights records right now. Last one, Russia. This one in Qatar. But they have the power because they've made the field, so to speak. FIFA, I know, are the custodians of football, which I don't. But because football, like anything else, is a business. So I don't believe it should be there, but it is going to be there, and they will put on a great show. So I'm kind of in the middle because as much as I hate corruption, I believe that they're entitled to a certain amount of it because it's what they own. It's their platform. Yeah. It's just like when Facebook and Twitter and all these things, they want to be dicky to people and block them, whatever. It's their platform, so they can do it.
Kamo, what do you think about that? You agree with some of it? None of it? All of it? No, you're on mute. There we go.
There we go. Sorry. No, obviously, there's some very good points raised there. In terms of, FIFA are a business, and at the end of the day, it's about enriching shareholders and all the parties that are involved. So you have to understand that also to host a World Cup is one of the biggest honors in sport, right? So of course there would have been some greasing of palms. Whether the Qataris characterize it as that, they'll probably be like, well, because that's what they keep saying, is that we had a very clean bid. And it's just like, it's very hard to have a clean bid when FIFA are involved, and so at the end of the day, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, we get it. Yeah,
we all just accept it, right? We do accept that this is part of what happens.
It is. I mean, but think about it, like any rights in the world, right, that are important. I don't think it's as simple as, hey, we like what you're doing, so we're going to give you the rights. I think there's lots of competition. If you think about any sporting rights to broadcast them anywhere, I don't think the people who are winning are just winning because they're nice people. I'm sure there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes to make sure that it goes in a particular direction. And it's no different with this.
So let me bring in my good friend Stefano Vigoriti. He's in Mozambique at the moment. He does these amazing. He's sitting on a tropical island right now, looking resplendent. Stefano used to play football. He's a massive football fan. He's been on SuperSport. He's been on a number of other shows all over the world. Big Italy supporter. Big fan of football. So Steph, what do you think of this? Because the other Stefano sent me this email saying he's not so excited about the World Cup. I only realized it's happening recently because it should have happened back in June, July. What do you think of this?
First of all, I want to say hello to Stefano because we were in the same club in Johannesburg, and I think he was one of the first coaches for our ladies team when we started our ladies team in Bedford View. So, ciao, Stefano.
Absolutely. Ciao. Good to see you again.
Nice. Well, Gareth, I don't know really why you got two Italians talking about the World Cup today. For us,
it's painful.
if you wanted to take the irony out of it, yes, there is an irony that for 12 years, I mean, whether we make it the next one or not, it will be 12 years that Italy has represented itself at the World Cup, which is a tragedy. But as you know, I'm involved also in Qatar because our ships are in Qatar, so we are part of the official sort of plethora of accommodation available in Qatar.
Let me just
during the World
explain.
Cup.
I mean, this is quite a big deal because you're launching a ship there, and it's going to have 7,000 people on board. It's like one of the biggest ships ever put to sea, and it's going to be a floating hotel just off of Qatar. I mean, if you're going to watch the World Cup, this is the way to do it, frankly.
Well, we are launching, and I'm going there. I'm flying on Thursday. We're launching it on Sunday, and basically just 3 days before the World Cup. We don't have only that ship, which is the biggest, the MSC World Europa. We will also have another 2 ships. 2 have been commissioned by Match, which is the official tour operating arm of FIFA, and one will run it ourselves, which is the Opera, which is obviously available for visitors. Accommodation is atrociously expensive in Qatar at the moment, in Doha. So they wanted to find a form to sort of provide alternative accommodation. But having said that, and going back to obviously what we're talking about today, the World Cup, it's the first time that the World Cup is played in November. That is probably the biggest news out of it all, and it goes against anything that we've seen before, especially when soccer has always been sort of Europe based as far as importance. You obviously have South America, but really the world watches Europe playing, and it's a disaster because these championships or these leagues all over Europe are going to be falsely sort of adjudged at the end of the day, because people now are sort of taking their leg out. They don't really want to get hurt because they want to be at the World Cup, and if they get hurt, then it's a problem. I think Stefano, you're a Juventus fan, right? It's okay. Nobody's perfect in this world. He's a Juventus fan, and Pogba is out of the World Cup.
Okay, because I think what's going to happen here is, despite all our bitching and moaning, we're all going to watch and we're all going to love it. We'll be pissed off for various reasons. We'll be pissed off because in Stefano and Stefano's case, the Italians are not in. I like the Italians. I'm also pissed off that they're not in. For some people, it'll be because Bafana are not in, but that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. What I think will happen is we'll watch it, but for the people going, so here are a couple of things that maybe people don't know. It'll cost you 204 Rand for a beer in Qatar. 204 Rand. That is very expensive. Stefano said just now that the accommodation will cost you a fortune, but there are other things too. What do we think, gentlemen? And it's all boys on the show this morning, so we can do this. Here is a picture of one of the stadia. It looks a bit like a vagina, if you ask me. The vagina stadium.
I must remember that I'm on Cliff Central so that I can swear, since I'm being used to Super Sport, and you can't really say anything. I must
you can
remember
say anything you want, Stefano. What do you think of the Vagina Stadium?
I mean, these stadiums will be elephants in the desert. They'll remain like this. They have an attendance. I think it's about between 2,000 and 3,000 for the big games, unless they obviously bring all their sort of migrant workers to the stadium by forcing them to obviously participate to show that they've got people. It really is. I mean, Qatar is trying its utmost to be another Dubai. That's basically the secret. And the funny thing is that Qatar has got the money. Dubai had no money. Dubai only had real estate and finance. Qatar has got the money because they've got the oil for as long as whatever the oil and the fossils are going to work.
It's oil and gas,
Elon Musk permitting.
But that's all they have.
It will be here.
And those stadiums.
Well, with the stadiums, guys, the one is called the 974 Stadium, right? They've used 974 containers to build it. And so I know that with some of the stadiums, and part of their pitch when they did pitch for this World Cup was to make sure that everything can kind of be deconstructed and used again. So
Correct.
part of it was that these stadiums, like the one with the boxes, will be able to be taken down and shipped off to other parts of the world for other people to enjoy. So they've
What
kind
are
of
they
gotten
gonna-
around
Kamo,
that
what are they
white elephant thing.
What are they going to do with the Vagina Stadium? I mean, can they dismantle that as well?
Send it to the Amazon. I don't know what you do with the Vagina Stadium,
If they
but
wanted,
there's probably, it's
guys,
recyclable.
if they
It is
wanted the
probably.
Lego Stadium, if they wanted the Lego Stadium, they could have done it, you know. But I mean, it's really of no importance. The fact is that, you know, sort of they managed to put themselves on the world map as far as soccer is concerned, as far as football is concerned, and hopefully it will be the first and the last time, because we can't really have a World Cup in November where the heat there is going to be unbearable. I'm going there on Thursday, and they say to me already it's 38 degrees. You know, just standing on the deck of the ship. So, you know, everybody's like ducking in obviously on inside the ship because it's unbearable. And it's, you know, everything is going to be false. Yes, we're going to be watching it. Somebody said, you know, from a producing point of view, from a production point of view, is going to be awesome. And I'm pretty sure that Supersport will do a great job. Will do a great job from our side.
Who are we going to support? Stefano and Stefano, now that Italy are not in, who are we going to support? Battaglia, you start.
I still haven't decided whether I'm watching, but I think Argentina is very, very strong this year. So your team. And because I lived in London for a number of years, and I almost feel sorry for the Poms for not having got this World Cup, I think I'll be supporting them. I don't think they'll win though.
Stefano Vigoriti, who are you going to support?
You know, I'm not going to support the English, that's for sure. But, you know, look, we're looking for the next Ronaldo and the next Messi. And Mbappe probably is the closest thing to that in the next 5 to 6 years. And France looks a good prospect, even though Pogba probably is going to be an advantage that Pogba is not playing. Argentina is always a sure bet. Brazil is always a sure bet. And I think Spain and Germany looks awesome, even though they've had a couple of hiccups along the way. You can't really say, but who am I going to support? You know, obviously, Argentina is the one closest to us in terms of being almost Italians. 30 million Argentinians, I think half of them or 60% of them are of Italian origin. So, you know, it could go that way. But I must be honest, I'm not really going to. I'm going to probably get interested once you get to the last 16. I've seen the groups and doesn't really, you know, those games will not excite me.
Kamo, who are you supporting?
You know, I have to, you know, rep the continent guys, so I'm gonna go with Senegal, right? Like I feel like obviously they you know, they've got some world beaters in there, but it is also a tricky group for them. You know, they've got let's see who they've got in their group. They've got Ecuador, the Netherlands, I think will be the biggest potential banana peel there, and Qatar, right? So they're in there with Qatar, who are going to be motivated. Ecuador, I don't know if, you know, but it's not an easy group to get out of. And you see, you've got 4 other African teams in there, in the likes of Tunisia,
I mean,
Morocco. No, it's not. Ghana have it tough. They're in a group with Uruguay and Portugal. Cameroon have Brazil in their group. Tunisia have France in their group. Morocco have, you know, Belgium and Croatia in their group. So I don't, you know, the prospects aren't great for African teams in terms of, you know, they're going to have to really put in some good performances. But this is what it is. It's a World Cup, so anything can happen, right? You have such well-coached teams. You push things out, you know, nick a point here. It might get interesting. Let's see.
What do you say, Ben?
I don't care. I'm so not into football. I mean, Arsenal's finally top of the English Premier League, so I'm just holding on to that. I think to have any more excitement in football for me right now would be greedy. I just want Arsenal to do well. But for me, it's just about the spectacle because it gets people talking about sport. And the more people talk about sport, the better. So it's amazing. I agree with all you guys on all the ethical issues, but it's going to be primetime entertainment in our summertime.
Exactly. So, that's another thing. You're going to have a summer World Cup for South Africans.
That means exactly that. Like, no, it's an absolute travesty this is happening. And I agree with the more esteemed gentleman on this panel. but it's November, December. People are going to get lit.
Exactly.
So, wow, that's cool.
No,
Right?
if in that space, then you have to be gearing up for that. If you show sport already, you should be, fixing to make sure that the people are watching the World Cup comfortably out in the sun. Hopefully, there's no rain. But yeah, for us in the Southern Hemisphere, I'm not really that mad because obviously they couldn't do it middle of the year. It's too hot. It's still hot now, but it's cooler, as I'm sure Stefano is going to find out.
Well, I was going to say before he started spinning his camera around, talking about sunny weather and everything. Where are you, Steph? Just tell us about this because it looks beautiful. I mean, the little bit that we can see, and I'm amazed that you managed to get signal in Mozambique. Just show us what's going on there.
Okay, I have just put on a 20 meg line. We've got a satellite link. So, we used to have a 2 meg line, off season. Now that the season is about to start from the first call here is on the 23rd. So I've upgraded to the 20 meg line, and as you can see, it's actually pretty good. I mean, this is what you're looking. I don't know. Obviously, at the back is the estuary of Meaney. The sea is on the other side, and this is our sort of
beautiful
our lodge. It's where we welcome our passengers.
Making me very jealous. That sounds like a good idea. Welcome. No, I know, and it sounds like a very good idea for a holiday too. So just think about that if you haven't planned anything for December and January yet. All right, gentlemen, thank you all very much. I know what's going to happen. I'm going to get into it. Maybe day 1 or 2, I'm going to be, I don't know if I like this yet. You all know me well enough to know that I'm going to become a massive fan somewhere in the middle of it. And I'm thrilled that at least 2 of you have said Argentina looked like a team, because God knows I've been waiting for years for some good news from that team. And Steph, you've been
since 1986.
Yeah, I know you've been at many matches with me where you've just seen the disappointment on my face as they've failed to bring home the bacon. But we'll see. Maybe this will be it.
Who's your favorite player in the Argentinian team, Gareth?
Ben, I have no idea, but I can guarantee you by week 2, I'll know. By week 2, I'll know.
That was such a softball. You just had to say Messi, man. That was such a softball question.
I know Ben's setting these traps, but watch what's going to happen.
Gareth, if I may,
of course.
Thanks very much for inviting me on. It's also a pleasure to see Stefano Vigoriti again. Haven't seen him for years. Stefano, I must tell you that I've actually switched allegiance since I'm living in Milano. I've become a supporter of a Milanese team, but let's just say it's not the black and blue one. So,
oh my God!
Let's say it's the other one.
Of the most difficult. Stefano has achieved one of the most difficult things in life for a man. Switching allegiance on a soccer of a soccer team. You can change your lives. You can change your girlfriends. You never change your soccer team.
Sacrilege.
So
Sacrilege.
It's one task that I admire you managed, even though you still went the wrong way. But it's fine. It's okay. We'll bear with it. Nobody's perfect.
All right, beautiful.
Gareth, thanks very much for having me.
Thanks, Stefano. Thanks for joining us all the way from Mozambique, Stefano Vigoriti. Stefano, what do you actually do in Milan while we've got you on here? What do you do there?
I live a pretty much basic life. I work in one of the big banks in Milan. I follow you guys religiously every day. I've emailed you before.
Yes.
I think at one stage you were quite interested in South Africans that are overseas, and the fact that you discuss South Africans that are overseas it's particular of interest to me. I miss SA very much, but I really appreciate where I am now, and living in Italy is wonderful.
It's nice to live in a world where you can hop on a plane and go anywhere you want, right?
It really is.
Work hard, play hard, and you can have all the fun you like. But thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me, and thanks to the other guests. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good
day. It's all thanks to him that we even are having this conversation. Kamza, what's been happening with you? Give us a little update on you, and one morning we'll have a proper, discussion, and you could sit down with us for the whole show.
For sure, man. I'm still a recovering COVID artist, right? So having been pretty lacquer before COVID, and then when you're in the live space and you make your money from being on stages, that kind of went out the window. But I did pivot into the space that I'm sitting in now. I've got a home recording studio where I kind of did voiceovers out of here, and then things started kind of opening up, and I was able to bring in other voiceover people. And ironically enough, excuse me, we were doing COVID messaging that was coming out of here. So it went from being a curse to working out in the end. And so, yeah, I just kind of, been doing that recently. I was just at Comic-Con. We had the big FIFA event there just to wrap up their season for Telkom. So I'm in that space, G. And, having also been at Supersport, kind of left there to, work on sports broadcasting in a more kind of like what you do, right? More kind of unregulated space. We wanted to have honest conversations about the state of SA football, which I love and respect, but we have to be very honest that there are some gaping issues with our football. But, we speak from a place of honesty and just try to be very supportive in a tough love kind of way.
I saw this, Ben, on your Instagram, I think it was, this Qatar thing, just to wrap this conversation up. So no booze and no drinking, except in like cordoned off areas. This is what, if you've bought a ticket to the World Cup, and apparently they are really hard to come by and are super expensive, but you can still get them. But if you're going, no drinking, right, Ben?
Yeah, well, there's going to be certain areas where obviously it's demarcated, and there are actually party zones outside of the sort of major hubs. Apparently, you go on like a train for like 40 minutes, and there'll be an area where you can be westernized.
Okay, and then no bumming, obviously, so no homosexuality, no bumming.
I think this thing has been just debunked, eh? I think some of the this infographic, because I also was like, it's one of those where it's like someone just kind of went wild and it's been let out there, and now people are like not sure. Because some of these things are true, some of them aren't.
I don't think it's FIFA regulated, but I know people who have lived and worked in Qatar, and this is how it is. And I'm actually not at all against this because it's their country. They do whatever the hell they want.
Exactly.
It's just a very odd thing because everything here, except for taking pictures of people without permission, that's just creepy. Everything there is like the hallmark of like live entertainment, getting drunk.
Exactly.
It's important to be modest. You've got to have profanities all the time. Loud music and sound is kind of what happens. And you want to date. You want to go overseas and try to hook up with girls that are being immodest and drunk. And music.
Carl says, read this in a Russian accent. How much for prostitute in Qatar? Very important.
There we go. That's why this thing is weird, bro. But at the same time, it's just I don't understand who's spending all this money to go be told how to live. Like, that for me is just a strange one where, yes, I understand, spend money on a World Cup, just not this World Cup.
Like I was thinking about this yesterday because I was talking about someone who I know who's bought World Cup tickets and they're going to this and it's costing them an absolute fortune. But it's the same people who would have gone to any other World Cup before. It's an elite group of people in the world who get to go to these things, and their bragging rights are, I've been to every World Cup since I was like 14 or whatever. And this is what they do with their money.
But then how you counter that now, since we've learned what we've learned about FIFA. It's like even the corrupt ones. You just ask them that. When they try to, when they try to shine on you and say, I've been to every World Cup, you say, oh, even the corrupt ones. And they'll be like, because it's not such a badge of honor, right? It's like,
listen, for some people, they've saved up for 3 years to do this because it's that big a deal to them. For some people, they've just got money to burn. But you know what's going to happen. I mean, like, you're going to see some famous faces in the crowd. And this, because it's so much more exclusive. Because it's so much more expensive. It's such a strange place to go for a World Cup. The stadiums are probably a little bit smaller than everybody's used to. They're not like South American size. It's going to be that much more like sexy to be there, right?
That's the thing. Another part of the sell was the fact that you're going to be able to see 2 games in one day. Because everything, like, literally Qatar is like 70 kilometers from top to bottom. So Everyone is not going to be moving around. You're going to be able to go watch one game. Whereas with us, one game was happening here, another was happening in Cape Town. So you weren't able to, unless you were flying between the places, see 2 games. So they've also kind of made that part of their sexiness, is that it's a compact World Cup where you'll be able to just kind of dart around town and see as many games as you can fit into your day.
Kamo is not being paid by FIFA, I can promise you. He's just
no. Look, these are the things that they were trying to, say that why we got it. These are their justifications. If anyone is ever wondering why Qatar kind of got these, besides the money influence.
Sure. So Ricky says, Ben, a question for you. Do you think Darren Till will fight on the 10th of December, as he already has an eye injury again? What do you think of Drickus' chances? It will be his first 10 ranking fight. So tell us what you think.
Ricky, Darren Till, for a guy who's got 3 kids, though, pulls out a hell of a lot. I mean, he's like pulled out of 4 of his last fights. And it's an absolute shame if it were to happen. And I think this guy needs to step up, because if he pulls out or loses this fight, he might get cut from the UFC. And Drickus has already trolled him online with a picture of his eye saying, "Don't worry about the eye, it's the jaw that I'm coming for." This guy needs this fight more than any fighter in the UFC needs a fight right now. He has to show that he is still a top 10 guy. He has to get, be current. Otherwise, he'll just be known as Khamzat Chimaev's best mate. And so, it means so much to him, this fight. If he pulls out, be career ending, I think.
And Dogoza says in the comments, those tickets are super expensive. Does anybody know what they actually cost at the moment? What would it cost you to go to a game? Anybody know?
I'm not sure, but the thing is, what's off-putting is, like, you've been to Dubai, right? It's kind of like a soulless dust bowl, and Qatar is not that different. When you see, especially the comms that they've got built, it looks like a mining setup. Like they've got these cabins where supposedly, the cheapest of the accommodation is going to be. So to that point, like I say, you can spend your money however you want. I just don't understand how this one. It's not like you're gonna walk out your room and see a beautiful landscape or the beaches of Brazil, or you know what I mean. There's nothing. You can't satisfy your wanderlust with Qatar. It's not those kind of places. So it just, for me, it doesn't make sense financially. I think the next one with the 3 cities, it's what, Canada, it's America, it's Mexico.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, that sells itself. Because there's so much you can do.
Yeah, so rather maybe save your money, but just because we're knocking the Middle East so hard, and frankly, there's a lot of change going on in that part of the world. I actually got an email from someone who listens to us called Oki the other day. He says, this is quite interesting. There's a development that I didn't know about. When I moved to Qatar in 1999, he says the weekend was only on a Friday. Then they changed to Friday and Saturday. But Saudi and Kuwait have their weekends on Thursday and Friday. So they eventually changed to Friday and Saturday in 2013. So that's kind of to fit in with the rest of the world. Now the UAE have changed their weekends to Saturday and Sunday, just like the Western world. But on Fridays, they only work a half day. So in fact, they have a 2.5-day weekend. It's going to be interesting to see if the rest of the Middle East will follow their example. Couples can also now stay together in Dubai without being married. And these are things that were inconceivable just 5 years ago, right? So things are happening.
Yeah,
no, for sure.
I absolutely. You say we're knocking it. I don't knock that region. It is what it is. It's worth seeing. But coming to your point, I was lucky enough to go to the Brazil World Cup. Being in Rio was fucking cool. And if I was to spend my money right now on a sporting event, probably wouldn't be this. But what they are doing and what they are trying, cool, because they're different. It's
for
very different from everything else. And because they have none of those natural qualities, they're spending whatever money they can on what they can do, whether you like it or not. So I think it's going to be, if someone says to me, do you want to go tomorrow? I go, yeah, cool. I haven't done it, so I want to do it. But this is very much going to be a big TV spectacle. And that we got to look at it like that. I think it's going to be a really cool World Cup for the TV spectacle like that. And good luck to you if you are spending cash to go all that way. I hope it's not a massive disappointment.
Yeah, listen, on the ground, I think if you are moneyed, you're gonna have a great time because they've got this train station. Exactly. They've got this train station that connects to all the stadiums. It's it's gonna be pashash. If you've got the cash, you're gonna have a great time because you're gonna be able to afford all the things that otherwise would make it very irritating to be in a hot place with not much more else happening than the football. So that's what it is. I think normal fans whatever normal is, have kind of been priced out of this one. So, to the point of the messages coming in, it's just there's no proposition here where I'm like, listen, even if I miss a game, there's so much happening in and about the place that I can just take that in. It's not that kind of place. But
it's weird because I that's almost giving it value, because humans love what other humans can't get. So this World Cup is basically gold leaf on your fillet.
It's the VIP, it's the VIP in a club. It's behind the velvet rope World Cup. That's what it is.
And you'll be surprised how many South Africans who have lots of money, and there are a lot of South Africans who have a big pile of money to sit on. They're going to go there and they're going to live large for a couple of days, and they're going to love themselves, and they're going to have a great life. And God bless them; they deserve it. If it's their money, they can do whatever they want with it, like you've already said. But it's going to become a like who's got the most cash situation, and that's pretty much what the Middle East is. So good for them.
Exactly.
All right. Awesome, guys. Ben, thank you very much. Kamo, lovely to see you. We'll get you on the show if you've got some time in the next while. Lovely to have you both on. Cheers. Have a good weekend, and we will talk next time. Cheers, everybody. All right, we still got George Meaney going to join us in a short while, so stick around for that. We've always got Borge on a Friday, which means that is where our weekend begins. It's one of my most exciting parts of the week, and we've got lots of good stuff for you next week as well. I did a couple of interesting interviews. We're actually going to be speaking, we spoke to Joel Pollack from Breitbart the other day, right? So we're going to be talking to someone from the left in America too. He's actually someone who worked in South Africa for a long time. And I thought, you know what, let's try and get both sides of this discussion. The American elections are on Tuesday. So on Wednesday morning, on the show, we'll be able to hear from somebody who's got a completely different take on what is going on in America. I mean, it's the same election, but I think it'll be cool to have someone with a very different point of view. David Smith, who's with The Guardian, and he's based in Washington. He'll talk to us about what he thinks the Democrats' chances are, whether he thinks there are surprises in this election, and it'll all be happening while the election results are rolling in. So that's with David Smith. You don't want to miss that on Wednesday morning, so we can check in. There are Senate results that will take quite a long time to come in, so there may still be things that are happening live during the show at that point. So what else do I have to throw in here before we run out of time? We've got, what was it that I wanted to bring up now? It's not often that I get caught out like this, but I'll come up with it in a minute. I'm sure it's here in the notes somewhere. Big thank you to all of our guests, obviously, for this morning. It was nice having two Stefanos on, both Italians. They knew each other, obviously. Used to play for the same club, Italian club here in South Africa, but one of them in Mozambique right now and the other one in Italy. So don't say that this show doesn't go far and wide to bring you all kinds of opinions. Great to see Kamo again. He came in for an interview yesterday. Not an interview, a discussion, a meeting over some business opportunities that we're looking at and potentially some new shows. So we'll keep you informed as to how that goes. But always great to connect with someone. And I hadn't seen him in, must be like 10 years, even maybe 12, when he and I worked at 5FM together. And he was sitting there and, the emails come in and you don't even see who the email's from sometimes. And then when that person pitches up and they're in front of you, you're like, oh my God, it's you. So it was really nice to see him. And if you've got any suggestions for what you'd like us to cover in terms of the World Cup, I mean, I don't want to overdo it. I know I'm going to become fanatical somewhere in the middle of it. It always happens. So if you will bear with me, if you're not a football fan and that kind of thing irritates you, you're just going to have to grin and bear it for a little bit, because especially if Argentina start doing well, I'm going to become unbearable. I'm just warning you in advance. So it's just going to happen. I haven't been paying any attention to the team or any of their players in the clubs that they play for the whole of the last 3 years. But trust me, within like 2 or 3 days of the World Cup starting, I'll have the whole thing in my head. I'll be able to talk about it like I knew straight away. But I don't know right now. So there you are. The WhatsApp line is 071-783-6214. You can send us a WhatsApp right now. You can also comment live on the show. Let's just quickly look at that. How's the tequila plan going, Gareth? Looking forward to it being on the shelves. I can't say much more about it than I already have, but just know that the Mexicans are already hard at work making that for us. So I will keep you informed. And when it happens, you will be the first to know. Here he is, George Meaney, You look very sporty for a Friday, George. How are you doing?
Morning, Gareth. Yeah, I was listening to the show earlier on while taking a run. Actually, I had my AirPods in my ears, listening to Ben and his lifestyle changes. And I don't agree with Kelly. I agree with Ben. You know, you got to do these things because they just etch your mind up a little bit.
Well, you are not someone who, you think about these things. You actually implement changes in your life. And I know you're a hugely disciplined human being. Like when you decide to do something, you do it like Ben and you do it properly. Do you do these cold baths or cold showers or?
I haven't tried the ice bath, Gareth, but there was a stage before winter this year. There was a stage where I was getting to full cold shower. So, I haven't got to Ben's stage yet of getting into an ice bath. So I take my hat off to him. Anybody that's going to try that, I think has some serious gusto. But I've done the cold shower thing. I want to start it again. The way I do it is every morning I'll just etch the tap a little bit colder. And then eventually you become accustomed to it.
Just before we move on to other things, Tracy just wants to bring this up. I think this is quite interesting. Mark Pilgrim, his cancer journey is one thing. He's been in ICU for 2 weeks now, probably there for another 2. Of course, this week we also lost Jeremy Mansfield. So I'm thinking very much about people who are suffering from cancer and who are going through that journey at the moment. And I just want to say, big ups to the people who are fighting hard, because it's an absolutely horrible fight to have. But there are some people who are just super strong, and it's lovely to see that they are not giving up, that they keep going. And, sometimes there's a good news story at the end of that. But ultimately, we're all in that same fight. Like, we're all going to go eventually. And I just feel that the people who are most acutely aware of it are the ones who know that they've got limited time. And my thoughts go to them every single day. Good stuff. All right. George, Peter says, a Maserati cap, my favorite car brand. Nice.
Love the Maserati for the logo. I think Maserati is a brilliant car. It is middle. Maserati is kind of like, it's not supercar millions of rands in terms of 5, 6, 7, 8 million rands. So it's an affordable quality supercar, sports car type brand.
The whole point with supercars, they're not meant to be affordable, but true. I hear you. So, George, first questions in from Vivian before you even start to tell us what you've got on the agenda. Please ask George whether a diesel car is still cheaper to run than a petrol car, considering the cost of diesel, which has gone up exponentially, and mostly because why? We burn so much diesel with load shedding, generators, these power stations that if they don't have coal have to run on diesel. So obviously the demand has gone sky high and the supply has stayed more or less the same. That's why diesel costs so much more now. So what's the answer?
So in a diesel car, you could probably get anywhere between 20, 30 to maybe, if you drive nicely and it's a good aerodynamic car, up to 50% better fuel consumption in some instances. The 50% is very high, but probably about a third. You're going from the likes of maybe 6 to 8 liters per 100 kilometers in a diesel to maybe 10 to 12 in a petrol car. So you can see there's probably about a 30% reduction. So it stands to reason that if the diesel price is 30% higher than the petrol price, you're probably even, Stephen.
Okay. All right. There we go. There's your answer. You see, you can ask anything. George doesn't know what questions are coming, and he's always got an answer. What have you got for us today?
So first thing is, have you ever just gone and sat in your car, Gareth? Just for the sake of sitting in your car, and why?
Okay, well, George, first of all, I know people who the only bit of peace and quiet they can get, either from work colleagues or friends and family or their spouse or their parents or whatever, is to go and sit in the car. Some people go to the car to cry. I know a girl who said that she hated her job so much. She used to be so miserable at work. Nobody at work was worth her spending time with. She couldn't get the privacy that she needed anywhere in the office. And she'd go down to the basement where she parked her car and she would cry. And it was one of the saddest things I'd ever heard, but I can kind of understand it. The car is a safe place for many people.
Yeah, so a study by WXFB says or found out that nearly 3 out of 4 people use their cars for mental health breaks.
There we go.
That's quite a common thing. You know, some people sit in their car during lunch breaks. It's a good place to listen to music because, you know, the best sound system is actually in your car because of the acoustics inside the car.
Sure.
Best place to listen to music. And as a matter of fact, during lockdown, the rate at which people went and escaped to their car, even in the garage, went up.
Yep, I'm sure.
So,
apparently,
you know,
Prince Harry takes, you know, every 15 minutes he runs down to the car and sits in there. He also has a hose pipe connected to the exhaust, which also feeds carbon monoxide into the car, but that's a separate story.
It's not working. That took me totally off track. Anyway, so sitting in your car is not just for a stakeout, and it just shows that you were talking about lockdowns yesterday. I think it was yesterday or the day before, it doesn't mean that people don't like solitude. People do like solitude, but they don't like to be told when to have the solitude.
Sure.
Taking your own break in your own time, means that you get some mental health benefits.
Well, that sounds good to me. I mean, your car is probably for many people the only little bit of peace and quiet you get. You know, I drove into the office yesterday, and I have to say that there was something cathartic and meditational about being in the car on my own without traffic, because, you know, I drove in really early and there were a few cars on the road, don't get me wrong, but it was mostly quiet. And it does give you, in my case, half an hour to clear your mind and to connect with your thoughts and to actually just organize your brain a little bit first thing in the morning. So yes, for some people, I think it's really important.
Absolutely. You know, and there's the one thing that I mean, I didn't have this in my prep, but the one thing that Ben gets, the benefit that Ben gets, I don't know if he knows it, but the benefit that Ben gets by climbing in that ice bath is the activation of your what's this nerve that runs down the back of your head, down your chest. Totally escaped my mind now. Vagus nerve, that's it, yes. So it activates your vagus nerve, and cold showers, ice baths, and a good tempoed music in your car for a 15-minute period actually begins to activate your vagus nerve. So there's plenty of things that activate your vagus nerve. You don't have to take an ice bath.
That is part of the parasympathetic nervous system, so you don't have any conscious control of it. And if you consider that is the one that connects to the heart, that powers up your heartbeat, essentially, and all of that other stuff, it's probably a good thing to keep that working properly. You know, make sure that everything's in order.
Exactly. And then Gareth, you remember the VW Beetle? Oh no, now I've put you on lock. There we go, you're back. You remember the VW Beetle? I've sent you a link there because my video system isn't working here this morning, so I'm going to have to ask you to show that.
Problem. I'm going to show just the first 3 that come up on Auto Trader. Is that all right?
Yep, that's perfect.
Because there's one here that's going for 99,900 Rand, and there's one for 249,900 Rand, but that's the new one. Are you looking at the old or the new ones? Which one are you interested in?
The old one.
Right. Let me put up a picture of this. Look and see it on Auto Trader, or you could just go and check out on Auto Trader right now which ones are available. But here they are. So tell us what you want us to know about these Beetles.
So the VW Beetle was built in South Africa from 1951 to 1979. And everybody that loved the Beetle knew it was reliable. And it was made famous by the movie that everybody knows, Herbie the Love Bug, if you remember Herbie the Love Bug. In 1970, the Beetle cost 1,800 Rand, brand new. And the average list price today of a Beetle with 1970s registration go for over 200,000 Rand, and you can probably see that in the link I sent you. Those old Beetles are going for quite a penny. They're becoming quite valuable.
Yeah, I'm just. Can I arrange these quickly by price? Let me just do that, and then I'll be able to figure it out. So I'm going to arrange by. Let me just do this. Hang on. This is such a useful system. I mean, you can really figure it out very quickly. Okay, so minimum to maximum price. We've got one here for 369,000 Rand from 1957.
Yep.
That's amazing.
It's unbelievable.
Amazing. Wow. Okay.
So if you have yourself a VW Beetle parked in the garage, is probably worth something. If you want to keep it, probably go up in value. Keep it restored, because these things seem to be becoming quite popular.
All right, there may be a gold mine hidden in your garage. Good, go and check it out.
And then very finally, Gareth, there is a Dodge. What is this thing called? Not a Dodge. A Dodge Viper limo for going for $160,000 in the US.
What, George? Can you explain to me why Americans love these stretch limos so much? Why only? No one else in the world cares about stretch limos as much as Americans. You don't see them in other countries as much. What is it about?
So
like these things?
No idea. I think it's this whole thing with Americans where everything is bigger, everything is louder. And Americans seem to be very proud of that fact.
Yeah, it's a very ugly thing. This, I mean, I don't know if you've seen those stretch Hummers.
Yeah,
those are no good. They just. First of all, how do you turn on a normal road? It's impossible to turn these things. The wheelbase is so long, and this one has, by the looks of things, only 4 seats in it anyway. So what's the point?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's got 2 benches. If you go to the next image, facing each other from the sides. But who's going to sit in that? And especially with the open top, you're going to have to be going 20 km an hour. Otherwise, everyone's going to blow away.
I mean, yeah, it's crazy. It looks like a boat. It doesn't look like
maybe that's what's sparked by the water.
No interest at all for me in stretch limos. Tracy says, though, that Belleville Matric Farewells is where they love a limo. So there we are. Looking for where limos will be valuable and popular. And hey, it is Matric dance season. So just maybe this is the thing that grabs your attention. Who knows?
Exactly.
George, good to see you as always. It's a highlight of the Friday because it means the weekend has begun. We will see you on Monday morning at 6 a.m. Everybody have an excellent weekend. Cheers. Bye-bye.